Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Kitchen Table Meta for the Set 2 Union Force Green Card Spoilers. Now this week we're doing something a little bit different, and instead of doing one big giant video, I've split it up into 3 smaller videos. One for leader cards, one for battle cards, and finally one for extra cards. Now in this video we're doing the battle cards, and there are a lot of battle cards, so I'm going to apologize in advance if this video runs a little bit long. I'm really sorry. I'll do my best to quickly go through these, but I do like to go through these in a lot of detail for you guys and just kind of to talk about them, open up discussion. So, I will still be very thorough with these cards, but I just want to apologize if I do take too much time. So let's quickly jump in here and get through them. I have a lot of notes and a lot of things to talk about these cards. And so first up, we have Inherited Will Super Saiyan Son Goku, which is a 6 energy cost, 2 green thresholds, 25,000 battle card. It has double strike and auto. At the end of the battle, after this card attacks, place this card in your drop area and choose up to 1 battle card whose character name includes Son Gohan in your hand and play it. And so essentially what this lets you do is attack with them, 25,000 double strike, nothing to laugh at, and then after that you can put that card in your drop zone and then choose a Son Gohan in your hand, put it in play. It's powerful effect, very good. 25,000 double striker, again, nothing to laugh at. One cool thing it lets you do is it lets you, and I like cards who do this in kind of a weird way, but it lets you attack and then replace it with Son Gohan, a Son Gohan card, and then essentially Son Gohan comes in active, and so it lets you attack again with Son Gohan. That's the obvious play with it, but also just kind of protects your card, right? So like if you want to attack with Goku and then replace and then just not attack, then you've essentially protected your card. Now, I do think that this card works very well with a card that we're going to see coming up, which is a Son Gohan that lets you search out a Piccolo card. And so it can lead to this kind of train where you play out this card, play out the Son Gohan card, and then use that card to go get a Piccolo card. And that's super powerful. That's a big chain. But I do think 6 cost is a little bit too expensive for this Goku. And honestly, at 6 cost for a 25,000 double striker, while that is powerful, I think it's going to be overshadowed by a lot of other 6 cost cards. I mean, just in green itself, the Rampaging Horror Broly is, considered, is probably just better than this. It has 5 more thousand power. It discards 2 cards from your opponent. And it, again, it's still a double striker. And so I think, it can do some fancy stuff, and that's really neat and cool, maybe niche situations. But honestly, I think that the Gohan cards aren't that great that we've seen so far. I mean, there's not a big Gohan card that I can think of that I really want to play this card. Maybe if there was like a 6 or 7 drop Gohan, this card would be really neat and kind of lead into this really cool combo. But currently, most of the Gohans are low cost, and because of that, I just really don't feel like this card it is very good right now. Now, I think this card is a card to keep your eye on. It could get very good as we get better or more expensive Son Gohans. But currently, I don't see the upside of this card in the current pool of cards other than the 1 Gohan card that got spoiled this set. And so for that, I'm going to have to give Inherited Will Super Saiyan Son Goku 1 star. All right, and so moving on, we're going to move on to... actually, a really fun card. It's Bundle of Curiosity Son Goku. Now, this is just a 2 cost, 1 green threshold, 10,000 attacker that says when it comes into play, draw a card. This is essentially Green's Boo. It has the same effect, and that effect is super strong. I mean, Boo is considered, in my opinion, the best 1 cost battle card in the game, and this card does the exact same thing. It costs 1 more energy, which is a big deal. I mean, I'm not trying to underplay that at all. 1 more energy it's a lot bigger deal to take your turn 2 to play this card than it is to do it on turn 1, to take your turn 1 play to play Boo. That is a significant downside. Now, the upside though of this card is it does replace itself. It still combos for 0, and he has 10,000 power, so he can actually even pressure the opponent's leader on turn 2. And so the upside of this card is good. It's a balanced. With Boo you get it quicker, and in this card you get it a little bit slower, but you can pressure. So very good card, good upside, good downside. I expect this card to be a staple just like Boo was, and for that reason I'm going to give Bundle of Curiosity Son Goku 3 stars. Now, something else to remember about this card, I should have said it earlier, is that this card is fantastic in Vegito. This is a great card in Vegito. We're going to see a lot of those pieces as we start seeing more and more of the set. We're going to see a lot more of those pieces for the Vegito deck kind of come into play. So this is a fantastic card for that deck, and I'm really excited about it. I love it. Next up is Fully Trained Super Saiyan Son Goku. This card is awesome. 4 cost, 2 green. 20,000 attacker with double strike. Its effect says when you play this card, choose up to one Piccolo with an energy cost of 3 or less from your deck and play it. Then shuffle your deck. And so, dude, this card's awesome. This is a card we talked about when we talked about the Goku. I also, just side note, love the art. The art's so cool with this card. I love Gohan in this form. I think he looks so neat. Obviously, very popular version of Gohan. However, the effect is also super strong. For only 4 cost, you get another card, and you get a tutor for it. You get to search the deck, find the Piccolo, and then put it into play. And so I think the card is very strong. I think it's going to see a lot of play in those type of decks that want this. The downside with this card, though, is that you don't have very many targets for Piccolo. There's not very many Piccolos that really stand out to me that I really want to go get. Now, there is a Piccolo that's spoiled in the battle cards that I do think is the prime target for this ability. But other than that card, there really isn't any. And also, it's kind of awkward to build a deck around that, right? Like, you're not going to put this card in just any deck. Also, the other Piccolos, just to let you guys know, one of them they're both blue. And one of them is the 0 cost card for a blue leader to give you 10,000 power, and the other is just a vanilla blocker. And so because of that, I feel like this card isn't as good as what it could be, and I expect this card to get much better as we get more Piccolos. But until then, I'm unfortunately going to have to give this card a 2-star. Now, I do think it's a good card, and I think that it's very exciting, but I think just in this set, currently what we've seen, this card just isn't quite good enough to make it to the 3-star, though I could, definitely see it being 3-star if we had more options. Next up, we have Supreme Dna Son Gohan. It's a 3-cost, 1 green, 15,000 attacker with the permanent ability, if there are 2 or more Son Goku in your drop area, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand and battle area by 2. Now, this is pretty cool. This is awesome. It's essentially just a 1-cost 15,000 attacker. Really neat, really cool for those like Gohan type decks. I think we did see some cards that are going to play off of the childhood Gohan things. I think it was in red that we saw those in the spoilers previously. And so this could be a really good card for, those type of decks. It also does play off the Goku mechanic, which is if you have a Goku in your drop area, then this card gets some effect. However, the effect's not that enticing, right? It's just a 1-drop 15,000 attacker after you get 2 Goku in your drop area. And so by the time you get 2 Goku into your drop area, you could have just played one of the 2-cost 15,000 attackers. And it's also, if you just use Gokus like willy-nilly out of your hand, like the combo, like if you just like turn 1, just like combo 2 Gokus so you can play this the next turn for 1. I mean, it's just at such large card disadvantage, it just doesn't make the card worth it. And so I think this card is a little awkward. And honestly, it's probably only going to see play if there is some sort of deck that really takes advantage of childhood Gohans. But other than that, again, I just really can't see this card seeing too much play. And because of that, I'm going to give the Gohan 1 star. Moving on, we have Full Power Vegeta. 3-cost, 2 green, 15,000 attacker that says auto, when you play this card, choose any number of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost 2 or less, for which the total cost adds up to 3 or less, and KO them. And so again, I'm going to read that one more time because it's kind of weird how it's worded, but I just want to make sure that it's clear. It says battle cards with energy cost 2 or less. Choose any number of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost 2 or less, for which the total cost adds up to 3 or less, and KO them. And so real quick, what that means is you can KO up to 3 energy worth of battle cards. They just have to be 2 or less. And so you can choose 3 1-drops or 1 2 and 1 3 and 1 1. But that's it. So that's all you can do with the card. Again, extremely powerful effect. The downside I have with this card, though, is honestly just it's a powerful effect, and I think that in a vacuum, this card is very good. Probably a 2-star card. Unfortunately, I think there's just so many options that do this currently in the game. I mean, the Bardock promo does something very similar. We have the all of the 4-cost cards that do the same thing. The oh crap, what is it? The Beerus, the 4-drop Beerus does it. The promo the promo Broly does the same thing. It comes in and kills something. We just have so many cards that just come in and kill, come in and kill. We've even seen a lot of those in the blue spoilers that come in and deal with 1-drops. And so because of that, I think there's just this card just isn't quite good enough. In my opinion, you just play, if this is the card that you want, you just play Bardock, and you're not limited at that point, right? You can get a more wide range of battle cards to kill. Now, Vegeta does come in as a 15,000 power body, and Bardock comes in as 20,000, but he's a turn later. So this comes in at 3 instead of turn 4. And so this card can see some niche play against the hand destruction deck. It's very good at killing Brolys. It's very good at killing like any of the decks that want to put out a bunch of 1-drops at the beginning of the game. But again, I just think that is a little too niche for a 50-card deck, because you have to be really selective of what you play. And unfortunately, I feel like this card probably is not going to be good enough to see too much play, and because of that, I'm going to give Vegeta, full power Vegeta, a 1-star. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this is a Vegeta card, and so it's going to play very well into Vegito decks. I'm going to consistently be saying that throughout every time I see one of these guys. And so just because I gave it a 1-star right now doesn't mean that it can't be super broken in the Vegeta deck, or at least be a key piece in that deck. But I just really feel like this card is a little too loose to see tons of play. Moving on, we get Vegeta. It's just a 2-cost, 1 green, 15,000 vanilla attacker. Now, again, just a vanilla 15,000 attacker. I do think these cards are better than what you expect them to be. I don't think this card's going to see a lot of play. I do think that it's possible that it could see play, however, in a Vegito deck, because it is a Vegeta card, so it's a great mana card. Energy card. It's also just, a good piece for that deck. And so, again, don't think this is going to see a lot of play, but it is a Vegeta card. So it's great for the Vegito decks, and because of that, going to give it a 1-star. Moving on, we move on to full power Trunks. 4-cost, 2 green, 20,000 power. Now this does have triple strike, which is insane for 4 energy, guys. It's super cool. And its permanent is all of your opponent's battle cards gain blocker. And it goes on to explain what blocker is. Now, this may seem like a downside, and it really isn't. And I'm gonna explain why. Because you can turn this negative into a positive, because you know that when you play this card, all their opponent's cards are going to get blocker, and that's very important. We currently have 2 cards in my mind that work really well with this, and that is God Charge Vegeta, which is when it evolves, you can kill a blocker, and then we have Frieza Hellish Terror, which is when it evolves, you can take all your opponent's cards with blocker and return them to your hand, which is absurd. I mean, it's essentially taking a downside of the card, which it is a downside, and kind of making it a positive. So you can play this card out, and in the next turn do the Frieza combo and just literally bounce every one of their battle cards. Now, that can be good and bad. It depends on what kind of battle cards they have out. Again, a lot of cards in this game really get a lot of effect when you play them, and so that could be a downside, but it's still a pretty cool play that you can do. And again, it shows you kind of, think a little bit outside the box when you see these spoilers, guys, and think, how can I take advantage of giving them blocker? Now, moving on to the upside of this card, which is a lot, is it's a 4-cost 20,000 attacker, which in my opinion is probably good enough just in general. And then it has, triple strike, which is, absurd. This is a great card. It's going to be able to put tons of pressure. Plus, it's the Trunks future card, so it can be searched out by Bulma, which is the 1-cost new Bulma we saw in the blue. Extremely powerful effect. And again, I talked about it when we did the blue spoilers, and I'm going to say it again here. Bulma seems really bad when you just look at the blue cards, but I expected us to get some better Trunks cards in green, and this card did not disappoint. A fantastic card. It's going to be very terrifying to play against, and in the right deck, it's going to put tons of pressure on your opponent. And because of that, I'm going to give this card 3 stars. Okay, moving on to another future Trunks. We have Aura of Rage Super Saiyan Trunks. Now, this is a 3-cost, 2 green, 15,000 attacker. It says, auto during your turn, when you combo with this card from your hand, choose up to one of your opponent's cards with blocker and an energy cost of 3 or less and KO it. So this is great. This is a good card. Again, we talked about it above. It's a little bit of that blocker hate. Now, again, this does work with the other Trunks very well. You can play out this, the 4-cost Trunks up above, and then next turn play this out and kill one of their blockers, because you can choose any of their cards at that point, which is, again, a very strong play. However, the problem I have with this card is that the auto ability is a little lackluster because right now no one is really playing blockers, right? Like none of these decks are really taking advantage of blockers. Now, this is very good against the revenge blockers that we've started to see get spoiled. It will kill them because they are at 3 or less energy. But the bigger blockers that we're really scared of, like the full power Frieza and the 4-cost Whis that got spoiled in blue, it actually doesn't hit those guys. Those are the one's 4 and the other one's 6, so it doesn't hit them at all. And because of that, I feel like this Trunks just probably isn't good enough. Now you can search that with Bulma because it is a future Trunks, and so it is pretty neat in that way. So you can almost guarantee getting it out when you need it in certain situations. But honestly, guys, I think it's a little too limited because not only does it have to be blockers, it has to be 3 or less blockers, and so I feel like that just really limits you. And unfortunately, I don't think this card is going to be good enough, and for that reason, I'm going to give him 1 star. Okay, so moving on. Next up is Ready to Strike Piccolo. Now this is a 3-cost, 1 green, 15,000 attacker with blocker. And his auto says at the end of their turn, your opponent must choose cards from their hand until there are only 6 remaining and place the chosen cards in the drop area. And oh my gosh, guys, this is such a cool effect. This is, again, one of those effects that's that really punish holding tons of cards in hand. I know that Bandai got a lot of feedback about how having tons of cards in your hand is a little annoying. People don't, for some reason, a lot of people don't like that. They don't like that whenever they attack you, you get tons of cards in hand, and it feels overwhelming because you have like tons of cards in your hand. So this is a counter to that in multiple ways. So it's really good for aggressive decks because you can freely attack your opponent, give them cards, it doesn't matter, and then play this guy out, and at the end of the turn, at the end of their turn, they have to discard back to 6, which lets you kind of catch up. So it rewards aggressive decks. Now, it's also a great card in control decks because essentially, especially in the mirror, you can play this card out. You have that blocker, if needed, at the end of their next turn, they have to discard tons of their cards. So it's really good against like the hand destruction decks and the stall decks that really want to have tons of cards in their hand and kind of beat you with card advantage. And so this card is great offensively and defensively, which makes it fantastic. It's also searchable with the fully trained Super Saiyan Son Gohan, which I can see happening. I think that's what kind of makes that card pretty decent. So you can search out this Piccolo and play it. Another thing that I thought was kind of neat, and I didn't notice, and I actually looked back, and actually all the Piccolos are, but all the Piccolos are gods, which I think is kind of neat because with the High Priest card that we saw, gods, I think in the next set are kind of focused a little bit, and it's something to keep in mind there. I don't think there's obviously not enough gods and greens, I think, to make that really matter, but it is something I wanted to point out because I thought it was kind of neat. I didn't know that they were gods, that Piccolo was a god, considered a god in the game, so that's something neat to kind of keep in mind too. Again, this is also a good blocker. You also get a lot of value with this card, so again, you can play this card out. You can, at the end of the turn, make them discard down to 6, which is, again, powerful. And then after the subsequent turns, you can also use this as just a good blocker that can probably survive an attack at 15,000 power with only you comboing maybe just a couple cards. And so because of all these reasons, I love this card. I think this card is one of the best cards spoiled, and we're going to give it 3 stars. So awesome card. I'm very excited to play with this. I love to see these counters to these different decks. It's really neat. And they do it in such a neat way. Like, they don't do it just like, if you have 6 or more cards in your hand, you take a bunch of damage, or you can't have more cards in hand. They do it like this. This card is 100%. Piccolo is 100% killable by your opponent, right? It is counterable, but it's just fun. It's fun to have those kind of silver bullet cards that have that fit in different decks. And so speaking of awesome silver bullet cards that have cool effects, we're going to go to the exact opposite type of card and go to the next card, which is Destined Krillin. Now this is just a 2-drop, 2 green, 5,000 blocker that has the permanent. If Android 18 is in your battle area or leader area, you can play this card from your hand without paying its energy cost. This is essentially just a green Mai, which we talked about earlier. I just don't think these cards are good. I'm sorry, guys. I know a lot of people criticize me for it, but a free 5,000 blocker just doesn't do a whole lot for me. To me, it's not what you want to do. It's easily counterable. You can just kill it with a multitude of cards if you need to actually get through it and do damage if your opponent. If not, you just discard a card to essentially do nothing. And so I'm not on board with these low cost blockers. I can't wrap my head around why they're played so much and why they're considered good. I know that I get such flack for saying that, and again, it's possible I'm just underrating them. But in my opinion, Krillin just isn't good enough, and for that reason, we're going to give him a 1. a 1 star. Next up is Yamcha. At two cost, 15,000 attacker, vanilla. Again, similar to I can't remember. I can't remember the little cat guy that we had in blue. He's just a 2-drop, 15,000 vanilla. Unfortunately, he's an Earthling like that card too, and so I don't think his trait is even that good. And so for that reason, I'm gonna give him 1 star. Not a whole lot to say here, guys. You know, Yamcha's Yamcha. You know, he sucks. So you just probably actually I think this is I think actually in this art actually is just him about to die too. So it's actually pretty relevant, pretty spot on for how good the card is. So next up, we have Martial Expert Tian. Oh goodness, Shinhan. This card is a 3 cost, 2 green, 10,000 battle card. Now this card is pretty neat. Let me go over the ability real quick. It says auto at the end of the battle after you combo this card from your hand. If your leader card is green, play this card. Active main, choose 1 card in your life and place it in the drop area. Choose 1 card in your life and add it to your hand. Then choose up to 1 opponent battle card and KO that card. Now, this card is, first of all, I knew it. I knew that this ability of comboing a card and putting it into play was going to be a cycle. I knew it was, and I'm super, super happy that it is because it's a really, really neat cycle. And I'm sorry, but what I mean by cycle too is that each color will have a version of this card. And so blue has one, and now green has one as well. So I expect red and yellow to get one as well. Now, it's also possible that it's just maybe like the Z Fighter ability and we won't see one of those other 2 colors, but I'm pretty sure this is a cycle and I'm super excited. Now, the second thing to remember is this card is the first card we've seen that costs 2 to combo. So it's 2 to combo only for 10,000. And so I expected to see 2 combo cards, but I expected it to be maybe 20,000 or maybe 25,000 or something that was like kind of made up for paying 2 for it, but we don't. But now the upside for playing 2 for this card though is that you do get to play it for free. And its effect is very powerful to quickly awaken. You essentially get to use 2 of your life cards. One just gets discarded, the other one you draw, and then you get to kill one of their cards. So it kind of evens out. Like you lose a card, but you get to kill one of their cards. So it's essentially like they kind of lose a card. So it kind of evens out. Pretty good ability. Now the big problem I have with this card and why I'm not super overhyped about this card is that after you awaken, so this card is a fantastic card to awaken, but after you do awaken, you don't really want to use this effect anymore because you'll be at 4 life, most of the time. And so you set there at 4 life. If you use this card, you go from 4 to 2. It seems pretty ambitious. And then all you do is kill a card. To combo it, it costs 2. And so you can't even really get an effect after you've used it. It's not like it combos for 0 or something. And then it's a 10,000 attacker. So it really can't put any pressure on your opponent, once you're if they are awakened. And so I just feel like this card is very good. It's very neat. It's a very situational card. And I think there's going to be certain decks that use this and awaken very quickly. And that's awesome. I just think after you do, it's kind of a dead card. And because of that, unfortunately, I'm going to give him 2 stars. Still super excited about the card, but I do not think it's the best card spoiled like a lot of people are talking about. And I feel like that it does have a lot of downsides that don't make this card quite good enough to reach that 3-star rating. Next up, we have Evolving Evil Lifeform Cell. Now this is a 5 cost, 2 green, 20,000 attacker with Union Absorb. Place 1 Android 18 from your hand under this card. Choose up to 1 cell from your deck and place it on top of this card. Shuffle your deck afterwards. Double strike. Auto when you play this card with Union. Draw 1 card and then choose up to 1 opponent battle card and KO that card. Mouthful, a lot of stuff he does. So this is a cool card. It's obviously based around the cell leader, or if you're wanting to play like the Union Absorb type of deck, this is obviously going to be a key piece in that deck. However, there's a couple downsides about this that I want to talk about in detail. First of all, the Union Absorb mechanic, I'm not sold on this mechanic. Let me rephrase that. I love the mechanic. I think it's super neat. However, I don't feel like it gives you a lot of value for what you do. So to Union Absorb, you have to take a card out of your hand. In this case, it's Android 18. And so it's very specific type of card. You have to take that card out of your hand, put it underneath the card that you played, which is probably going to be the 3-cost cell that we'll talk about below. And then you search your deck, for this card and put it into play. So you get to cheat this card into play. But you spend so many resources to do that I feel like it's borderline efficient, and I'm not sure if it's quite good enough. Now, the one thing this card does to make up for that, though, is that once you do Union Absorb, you get to kill you KO a battle card. So it tries to kind of make up for that card disadvantage by giving you that effect. But again, that's still kind of, you know, a situational effect. Maybe your opponent doesn't have, you know, cards out that you really want to KO that really matter. Also, it's possible you might be just playing against a control deck that's, you know, not going to play this, you're not going to have a card out that's really worth you killing. And so, or I'm sorry, I might not have battle cards out at all yet. And so because of that, you know, I think this card isn't quite good enough to be like an insane 3-star card, but I think that I am going to rate this card a 2-star because I think it will be a pivotal, and it's by far the best Union Absorb card we've seen for Cell. So for that reason, I'm going to give it 2 stars because I think it is going to be a staple for those type of decks. But I just think, you know, again, be very careful with this Union Absorb mechanic. It's like I said, it's borderline, you know, not efficient enough. So keep that in mind. Next up is Growing Evil Lifeform Cell. Now, this is a 3-cost cell that's 3 for 15 and has the Union Absorb mechanic, which is, again, you have to place, but this time you have to place an Android 17 card in your hand to make it absorb or make it, you know, transform or evolve, or however you want to say it. Again, this card is really good, you know, again, in those cell type things. It is a 3-cost card for 15,000, but I don't think you're ever really going to use it like that. You're probably just going to pay 3, play this out. If you have an Android 17 in hand, put it underneath, go get the 5-drop, kill somebody, and now you have a 20,000 attacker that you will use to pressure. Something to remember about both of these cards, by the way, is neither of them, they're both very specific. Like for this card, you have to have 17. For the next card, you have to have 18. And so it's like this weird combo mechanic that, you know, it's very likely that you just won't have one of those cards in your hand. And so then like your Absorb is just going to be dead until you draw what you need. And so because of that, and like, again, I think the clunkiness of the Absorb mechanic, I'm going to have to give this card 2 stars. And the big reason why, again, guys, is because I think this card on its own, I think is probably, you know, not good enough, but, you know, with the Absorb mechanic and the synergy between them, I think it's enough to make it a 2, but I think I'm not sold on the Absorb mechanic, and so I'm unfortunately going to have to not give it a 3 and go down to 2. And so, again, this card, 2 stars. Next up is actually a really cool card. I'm actually really excited for this card. I know it's like this is such a stupid card to be excited about, but it's Uncountable Mini Cell Jr. I just love this card. It's a 3-cost, 1 green, 10,000 attacker. It says auto, when you play this card, if your leader card is Cell, play 2 Cell Junior tokens. Now the Cell Junior tokens have 10,000 power and 0 combo cost for 5,000. It's essentially just a copy of this card. I think it's super neat. It's essentially you pay 3 and you get 30,000 power worth of battle cards out in play, which is cool. You also get 15,000 of combo potential out when you play this card. Now, obviously, the downside is you have to play Cell, and that kind of stinks. But, you know, this card is super neat. It is an Android special trait, which I'm sure will matter eventually. You know, I'm sure there'll be some cards that kind of take advantage of that. Currently, there is none. But yeah, it's such a neat card. It's very flavorful. It lets us know that there are going to be token cards in the future, which is super cool. That might be a really neat, you know, promos for tournaments and stuff. So again, just really cool card, really awesome flavor, and I'm just really excited for it. I think it's a very efficient card. I think it allows you to put a lot of pressure on your opponent early, and then once they awaken, you have 3 awesome cards for combos. And so I think this is a very, very neat card. It's not the most exciting card, right? It's not the most, like, you know, you don't look at it and go, wow, this is cool, but it's just a really solid card. So for that reason, I'm going to give this 2 stars and expect this card to see play and be a really neat card in the Cell decks. Okay, next up, we have some of the androids. And so we have Android 17, Expanding Energy Android 17, the 5-cost, 2 green, double striker 20,000 with the auto ability that says when this card attacks, draw cards until you have 4 cards in your hand. Okay, and so one thing about this effect is that it's extremely powerful. It's really awesome. But before I get into that, there is something I want to talk about. I've seen some people in the group and some other people think that, for whatever reason, that if you attack with this card and you have 4 cards in hand, that you would just draw your deck out. I'm not sure how that got started or why people think that is, but that's absolutely not true. That's absolutely not what happens. When you attack with this card, if you have less than 4 cards in your hand, you just draw up to 4 cards. That's it. If you already have 4 cards in hand, you just don't draw cards because you already have them. You've already drawn up to that many. You don't have the ability to do that. So that's just a weird kind of thing I've seen people talk about in the groups. I want to, you know, kind of address here. Also, but get to the actual card. It's a great aggressive card. It's awesome. It's a great stall to, it's a great counter to the stall decks that want to keep you low in cards, the hand destruction decks. This card is great. It also allows you to do some really cool stuff with it, like you can just go all out and combo to get this attack through, and then after you attack, just draw back up to 4. Just a fantastic card all around. Honestly, probably the best green card that's spoiled currently. Just a solid card, can be used in a multitude of decks. Works in the Cell decks for absorption, works in the Android decks. He does get buffed off androids. It works in just cards in just decks that want to break the stall, want to be more aggressive. It's just an all-around awesome card, and because of that, guys, I'm gonna have to give it a 3-star. Fantastic card. I'm super excited for it. I can't wait for it. Now the next Android 17 is Twin Brother Android 17. It says a 3-cost, 1 green, 15,000 attacker. It says auto once per turn. When this card attacks, you may place 1 card from your hand in the drop area. If you do so, choose up to 1 Android 18 in your battle area and switch it to active mode. Now, this is a powerful card, powerful effect. Again, really good in the Android deck. Honestly, guys, I feel like the Android cards are all really good. Android 17, 18 cards are all really good. And because of that, I think it just, again, solidifies how good the Android leader is. So if this guy, he's really powerful when paired with any of the Android 18 cards. Because essentially what you can do is you can attack with the Android 18 card, and then attack with this card, discard a card, ready that 18 card, and attack with it again. And so it allows you to get tons of attacks off. Now, one thing to remember is this is once per turn, so you can't, if you have both versions of 17, 18, you can't just attack with one, attack with the other, ready, attack, and just keep going off. Unfortunately, you do have to, you only can use it once per turn. It is at the cost of 1 card out of your hand too, which, is card disadvantage. But again, the other Android 17 really makes up for this. So again, it's not that big of a disadvantage, but I feel like the Android 17 version isn't as good because the Android 18 cards isn't quite as good as the 17 ones. And so for that reason, and the fact that you do have to discard a card, and again, it's just a 15,000 attacker on its own. So, it doesn't have double strike or anything, a powerful effect. But again, I don't think it's quite good enough to be 3-star. And so for that reason, I'm going to give it 2 stars. Moving on, we're going to go to Exterminating Energy Android 18. I don't know why that seems like a weird name to me. It's 5 cost, 2 green, 20,000 double striker. And the auto here is when this card attacks a leader card, your opponent chooses 1 card from their hand and places it in the drop area. Essentially, this is it's just the 3-drop Gotenks. But it costs 2 more. It has 5,000 more power, and it's a double striker. Now, the effect is very powerful, and I like it a lot on this Android because you can use the 17 to kind of untap and attack again, so you can get 2 cards out of their hand. But the problem I have with this card is the same problem that I have with Gotenks, and that is when this card attacks, you do have to discard a card. But most of the time, what your opponent will do is they'll just take the 2 damage, they'll draw 2 cards, and then on their next turn, they'll just attack, this Android and kill it. And then so they've netted essentially another card off of you. And so a lot of times this card won't really result in your opponent discarding. It won't really result in your opponent losing cards. But where this card is better than Gotenks is because it comes out at 5, because it's a double striker, and because it has 20,000 power. It's possible when you play this that your opponent just can't take the damage, right? They can't take the double strike damage, and because of that, they will actually net lose a card. Now, I do think that this card, again, works really well with 17. It will almost as surely, when it does work, result in your opponent discarding more than 1 card, because you have to discard combo cards to not die from this ability and discard 1 off its effect. And so I think it's a good finisher in the Android deck. I think it's a great finisher, kind of late in the game. But again, I see this having too many downsides. It's not as flexible as some of the other Android cards, and for that reason, I'm going to give this 2 stars. Next up is Twin Sister Android 18. 3 cost, 1 green, 15,000 attacker. Auto, when this card attacks, you may place 1 card from your hand in the drop area. If you do so, choose up to 1 Android 17 in your battle area and switch it to active mode. Now, essentially, this has the same text as her brother does. It does the same thing. It's just it affects 17 instead of 18. And so this card's awesome. Again, same things go with the last card I talked about. Again, not really a threat on their own. The negative of discarding a card, though, and the difference with this card and 18 is that this card has better targets. So this card can affect the 18 that draws you up to 4, and you can have some hilarious turns where you can attack with that card, dump a bunch of cards to combo it, draw back up to 4, and then attack with this card, ready that card again, again combo, and then attack with that the 17 again to draw back up 4 cards. It's just really cool. Like, this card I think is much better than her brother because of, you know, her brother just has better targets. Now, for that reason, I actually almost gave this card a 3-star, because I was like, man, you know, just attacking with the 18 the 17 that draws your cards, honestly, it probably makes this card just good enough to be played in almost an auto include in almost every Android deck. Unfortunately, though, I'm going to give this a 2-star. I think it's very good, but I still think you have to jump through a lot of hoops. And honestly, just attacking with the 18 is I'm sorry, the 17 is just good enough. And I think, you know, you don't want to get too cheeky with the card. And so for that reason, again, I'm just going to give her 2 stars. Next up is Encroaching Terror Android 19. I freaking love this card, by the way. It's 2 cost, 5,000 attacker. Auto says when this card attacks, draw 1 card, and this card gains 5,000 power for the duration of the turn. Now, this card's super fantastic. Love this card. The fact that you play it out, cost 2, you play it out, you attack, draw a card. That's awesome to me. It immediately replaces itself. It does think you kind of have to like attack with a 5,000 attacker. Like, obviously you're not going to get much value out of that. It can have some pretty cool plays if you play like Goldo, where you can like play Goldo out, you know, exhaust one of their guys, like one of their 1-drops, and then kill them with this. So you draw a card plus kill one of their guys, which is pretty neat. Kind of makes up for the Goldo. Stuff like that. Some cute little plays like that. But I don't think that makes it fantastic on its own. I can see this being very good with the Frieza leader. This is something that, you know, the Frieza leader lets you untap or unrest a battle card at the end of your turn. This essentially lets you draw a card every turn with that leader, which is really neat. Something really fun you can do with that. But again, if you can keep this card alive, though, it is a powerful ability. You know, again, just attacking with this card, drawing a card, your opponent trying to kill it, or actually even just your opponent killing it the next turn might actually be worth it. It might just be in like the kind of more controlling decks. It just essentially saves you a life because your opponent's focusing on this card instead of your hero. I'm sorry, your leader. And so, you know, again, this card also can just pressure, you know, the leader. So I think this card has so many cool little effects, and it doesn't seem that powerful, but I think we're going to see this card be extremely strong and see it getting played in a various amount of decks. And so because of that, I'm going to give this card a 2-star. Super excited about this card. I actually, probably my favorite card that got spoiled. I know it's kind of like lame, but I just love this card. I think it's really cool. Next up is Terrible Creator Android 20. This is a 2-cost, 1 green, 10,000 attacker. With auto, when you play this card, choose up to 1 battle card, which includes Android in its card name other than Android 20, from your deck and add it to your hand. Then shuffle your deck. This card's very boring. Like, it looks so boring. It's like it's a 2-cost, 10,000. You just go get a guy, right? But is so strong. Like, the tutor, to play this card out and have a 10,000 attacker that literally tutors for any Android. So it's not like Android 17 or Android 18. It's literally them and the other Android, Android 19, which is the one we just saw, and Android 16. So it literally searches for any Android. And also, the tutor isn't color specific. So the tutor isn't like, go get a green one. It's literally anyone. So if we see any more androids in like red or yellow, you know, you can go get those guys too. And so, you know, this card is just fantastic. It's a tutor for 2, which is already good enough. It's 10,000 power, which is absurd to me. So you can also pressure your opponent with it. It's also a 0-cost combo card, so you can just play this out, search, use it as a combo. Guys, tutoring in this game is insane, and this guy is probably one of the best tutors we have in the game. And so for that reason, we're going to give him a 3-star. His targets are just so good too. I mean, you can go get the Android 18 or whatever that draws you 2 cards. It's just so good. So good card. Such a good card. Okay, and finally, the last battle card in the spoilers is Iron Hammer of Justice, Android 16. 3-cost, 2 green, 15,000 blocker with Revenge. And it has auto. When this card KOs your opponent's battle card, switch this card to active mode. Fantastic ability, guys. I love this. Insane blocker. I mean, the blue color, the blue equivalent to this card was already playable enough. This card, you know, does the same thing. 15,000 also readies after you KO something with this card, so it actually kind of rewards you to keep it alive. And so if your opponent attacks, you block. If you can save it with a combo card, then you can ready it and use it again for future attacks. It's an Android, which is you know, really important as well. It can be searched out with the card we just saw. It's just a fantastic card, and again, this is the way we make blockers better. I'm so happy to see Bandai doing this. They're really making, you know, The blocker card's very good, and I love it. I love to see them getting some more love. And so this card, fantastic in every way. I can see this card being played in the Android deck or just in control decks in general. This is just a fantastic card to be played, and so super excited. I'm going to give this card 3 stars. Super excited about this card. Plus, I love the Android too. That's like one of my favorite Androids too. I think he's so cool. All right, guys. So that's it for the battle cards. Let me know, guys, what you thought your favorite battle card was. What you thought of my rankings. Did I get one wrong? Did I mess up? Let me know. Also, let me know how you feel about this format. Did you guys like the 3 video format? If not, let me know. I can always go back to the 1 video format. And then again, guys, remember I don't do videos on Saturdays and Sundays. I always take those days to kind of work on the channel, work on videos for the next week, kind of get ahead a little bit. And so let me know. I'm sorry. So I won't see you guys until Monday, but for Monday I will have Meta Monday, which I have a pretty exciting topic. I'm pretty sure I'm going to choose for this Meta Monday, and I'll have more information on that topic probably like on Sunday on my Facebook page. So again, guys, thank you so much for all the love, all the support, all the likes, all the follows. It means the world to me, guys. You guys are the best. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys Monday. See you guys. Have a great weekend.